Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by physical therapist, sports nutritionist, and podcaster, Dr. Braxton Cosby. Dr. Cosby focuses on helping you stay healthy and get healthy by changing your habits one habit at a time. He is the host of the Ask the Fat Doctor podcast. He also has done some things with NFL analyst Jamie Dukes. Some of you might not know Jamie Dukes, but I've heard him on a few shows and he's pretty great. So, Dr. Cosby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I tell everybody I'm a physical therapist by trade. I've been working in the field since 2001. Done a little bit of everything from ICU, neuro rehab, outpatient rehab. I've done pediatrics, geriatrics, and I also work as a sports nutritionist and a personal trainer. I also coach track and field in high school here in Gwinnett County, Georgia. And by night, I am a writer. So I have written over 20 books. I've won a nice amount of awards for my writings. My my health book, Fat Free for Life, 13 Principles of Guaranteed Weight Loss and Ultimate Health, is my what I call my gift, my love letter of all my experience as a physical therapist, as a personal trainer, sports nutritionist, and even a coach. I tried to put all of that into one resource because I thought, like, if I was to write something about health and wellness, I don't want it to be a gimmicky, 5 steps to lose weight kind of a thing. I really wanted to be all encompassing of my identity as a Christian believer, as a physical therapist and everything, and just compartmentalize that all into one place where we really address the mind, body, and soul. And so that's really what Fat Free for Life is about. It's more about, cutting off the fat, the of course, body fat. Everybody wants to lose weight, be lean, and be healthy, but it's also just the excessive things in life that hold you back from being the best version of you. And so that is like, how could I put that all together? And I was able to do that in these 13 principles. The book has 13 chapters that basically have these 13 principles that I came up with. I really thought would be a good place for people to start their wellness journey. And with these principles, I researched over 70 articles that I thought would really help to kind of prove the science behind the principles. That kind of covered the because I do, like I say, mind, body, and soul. So the mind is more the intellectual stuff. The more of the researched articles. The body is the personal testimonials that I had, that I included, of people who have done amazing things in life with their circumstances and struggles and still accomplished a lot of things. Even some of my own personal stuff is in there. And then also the soul is really just talking about the spiritual wellness. So I actually use biblical stories and quotes from the Bible itself that really kind of play well with the principles that I came up with. Again, so it's a three-headed monster that attacks each one of these principles to support what I'm saying, with the hopes that if people really dig into this, that they'll find a lot of avenues to really find the key to hopefully unlock the amazing wellness that the body has inside of it. That's really for everybody to have access to.
So why are you so passionate about what you're doing, and what made you decide to get into physical therapy, sports nutrition, and be so passionate about, helping people with their
Yeah.
health?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think a lot of people, what I've found in life is that you really live best if you work through your own experiences. So I was a track athlete in college. I ran for University of Miami at LSU, and I got injured like really, really bad. I tore my hamstring, and that time that I was not able to compete for the first time in my life, I was able to kind of like sit back and be on the opposite side of the table now, where I'm actually getting rehab by trainers and working with doctors and things like that. And it really made me kind of sit back and understand the experience of what it was to be sidelined. And I kind of drew from that. I didn't want to. I knew I wanted to go into healthcare at that point and maybe help people as well, especially my own personal experiences of understanding what it was like to compete at a high level, be injured, and try to get back on the road to recovery. So I was like, well, man, that's something I could really take with me and pass on to other people. But the next level was I didn't want to do it as a trainer because there was like the time away from family, and of course I wanted to actually have a family. Once I got out of college, so the commitment was too much there, and I also wanted the autonomy of being able to kind of work anywhere. Like I said, I've worked a numerous levels of physical therapy, and that just physical therapy gave me that outlet. If I wanted to do outpatient for a couple of years, okay, I could do that. If I want to do home health, I could do that. I could just keep changing. So I never really got bored with the job. So going through that experience really made me hungry. It gave me a different type of eye to look at things because when I work with patients, I'm not only looking at them from stuff that they teach me in the books, but I'm also thinking from a coaching perspective or just an athletic perspective myself to say, man, this would be a good way of doing this, because I can see things just differently. I can see movement in a certain way from people that I think maybe a lot of therapists don't really understand because they weren't athletes. So my perspective is really wide, and so I can bring all of that to the table to really help somebody maximize their results and outcomes. And I've loved it. Like I said, I've been doing it over 20 years. And I never feel like I'm going to work, with my job. So I've been very blessed from that perspective because I really enjoy what I do. So the passion just stays there because I'm always like, hey, what's the next challenge? What's the next person who needs something to get back on their feet and take control of their wellness journey. And when I can just get in there and help people out and just do that and see them kind of grow. And my favorite line when I discharge a patient is, hey, I hope I never see you again. Nothing personal, but that means you're doing really well. So we kind of laugh about it. But that's just how I feel. I get to touch and go and really help people. So it's just been a blessing for me across the board.
Absolutely understood. Now, you did some work with NFL analyst Jamie
Mhm.
Dukes.
Right.
So kind of tell us how that happened, how you met him and great thing that you guys have going on.
Yeah, I met Jamie through a mutual contact many, many moons ago, and we just kind of hit it off. And at the time, Jamie was leaving the NFL Network. He was doing commentary there, and he wanted to kind of get his own thing started with this podcast down here in Atlanta on the 1380 WAOK. And he wanted this to be this weekly conversation where we just talked about, he was always a bigger guy, so he was always on his weight loss journey as well. And he was like, hey, man, you can give me the physical therapy perspective. We could have, some other doctors come on as guests every now and then. And we also were working with another young lady who was just had experience in doing radio and stuff. So it was a really, really fun time. For about a year, we ran that podcast, Ask the Fat Docs, down in Atlanta. And we would just get on weekly and just, have a great dialogue, talk about things. I would give some of the facts and statistics of, rehab and how that would help people lose weight and again, if they were injured in some way, had some disability, how they can get over. So I contributed my part of it. Jamie is always just a fantastic personality. So he provided the jokes and, the satire from his perspective. And so it was a great show. We had a wonderful time. And then, eventually I just ended up doing my own thing for a little bit with health podcasts. And now I just really run more things out of my website where I just kind of share some blogs and things like that. So, but either way, Jamie went his way, I went mine, and he's still a great friend and a wonderful personality.
You are also the nephew of actor Bill Cosby, so
Hmm.
kind of explain to us what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, my uncle's been fantastic source of motivation and inspiration. He helped me get through college and basically um encouraged me to go as far as I wanted to as far as my education was concerned. So I ended up, getting my bachelor's, my master's degree, and my doctorate from the University of Miami, Florida. With his financial help. So that was the greatest gift I could ever get, is just getting opportunities. I just always wanted opportunity to do something. And then so him being there and kind of telling me, that basically the sky's the limit as long as I could just keep my grades up and stay motivated. That was always something that was great. And obviously just seeing the example that he set with what he did with the Cosby Show all those years, and things like Fat Albert and all that was always, in the forefront. So, I think as we live in this world, everybody kind of needs a beacon or an example. I remember this one guy who taught acting. I was taking his course years ago, and he said, if you ever want to know if you can do something, find somebody who's done it, and that way you know it's actually possible. So just always seeing the example of some of the great accomplishments my uncle had was always motivation for me too.
Okay. Well, kind of talk to the listeners about some of the bad habits, that you see from listeners and how you help them overcome them.
Yeah, I think one thing is that what people don't do enough of is admit their shortcomings. Man, I used to work with people so many times, especially from a nutritionist standpoint. I say, "What are you eating?" "Oh, I don't even eat that bad." Yet they're 40 pounds overweight. I say, "Well, how is this happening then?" "Oh, well, I work out and I didn't really eat anything today." "Well, what did you eat?" We kind of break it down. And before you know it, when they start getting honest, they had fries and they had all this other fried stuff. And, they didn't have the proportions of, like, the right amount of salad versus the amount around of good fats. And so they didn't know how to break their plate up. And they thought because their portions were small that that was sufficient. But realistically, they were doing two things. They were getting small portions that were loaded with calories. And then they weren't giving their body enough of the good stuff that was going to help to fuel their metabolism. So I tell people all the time, lean muscle mass and eating the right foods are your cheat codes to staying lean and healthy. So you've got to know how to tap into that, but you've got to be educated on exactly what that is. So, and my time as a sports nutritionist, it really is about just educating folks and kind of giving them some cheat sheets along the way. I remember Jamie talked about this thing called he had fat ways about him, and it was like, getting a big bag of potato chips and eating the entire thing rather than taking out a portion, closing the bag up, putting it away, and just eating that portion. Or he would take a whole, uh, you know, quarter pint of ice cream and just eat directly out of it rather than scooping out ice cream, a couple of scoops in a bowl, closing it up, putting it back in the freezer. He'd start eating out of it, and before you know it, he'd eat the whole thing. So I think it's just the habits that we have. I think eating has become a real social event. We stack it on doing something. The big games come on tonight. Well, what are we going to eat for the big game? And then people go out and they'll make this menu of things that they want to eat. And of course, before you know it, you've got all the carbs and you've got all the sugary drinks, and you've loaded up on all this stuff while you're sitting looking at a game for 3 hours. Well, now you're sedentary and you're fueling your body with high calories and cholesterol items, and it's late into the day and into the night. And by the time you're done, the game is over at 11 o'clock at night. What do? You go to sleep. So now you're sleeping with all those calories in your stomach and in your body, and you're not doing anything to burn them out. So of course your body's going to store that as fat over time, and your blood glucose levels are going to increase, and then that's going to cause some other changes. So I think people just really being educated on being honest about the habits that they have, and then being educated on how to get around those habits and just do better over time really becomes the main course of action that I take with most people, just to try to get them back in the right mindset so that they think differently. And then if you think differently, you can act differently and you can position yourself differently over time.
Is that what you mean when you say fitness is more than just physical? Break that down and explain that to people.
Yeah, absolutely. For one, fitness is, it starts with the mind first. You've got to feel good about yourself. I don't care how heavy you are. Um, you got to feel good. If when you wake up, your joints aren't hurting, and you feel good, you get up, you can move, you're motivated to go out and exercise, you make exercise and activity a part of your daily routine. You can't just say, oh, I got to figure out where I'm going to go to the gym. It needs to be a part of what you do. If you're coming home and you get home and you don't feel like going back out and exercising again, then don't come home from work. Go straight to the gym when you leave. Fitness becomes a mental thing. It's about preparation. It's about being ready for the task at hand. And then when you get home late at night, can you, when do you want to stop eating? What time do you not want to eat after then? You need to prepare meals maybe the morning of or the day before. So you really have to be active and intentional about setting up your standards as far as how you want to live and also the structure in which you live too. So fitness becomes a mindset that is a part of what you do. It becomes a part of your DNA. I know for me, I have my 3 or 4 days a week that I work out. I get off work. I'm there at the gym at 4:30. I'm there till 6. I come home. I'm trying to eat before 7:30. And then I go about the rest of my night, whether it's working on my next book or whatever project or whatever I'm doing. But it's a part of what I do. It's not just an adjunct. It's not like I'm a go through my day and then add it. It's a part of what I do. And, I'm of a certain age where if I don't exercise, my body starts to talk to me. I start to feel heavy. I start to feel bad. I start to get some of those old track injuries coming back to haunt me where I get knee pains and stuff. But the more active I am, the less I feel anything at all. So I think people have to really understand there's a degree of fitness and there's levels to it. So you may not be the super elite. You may just be the weekend warrior who can only work out on the weekends, or you may be the person who just is okay with walking. And that's okay. When you get to the level that you feel like you're no longer getting any improvements, then it is time to institute some changes and start to up your game a little bit. So if you walk maybe 30 minutes a day, maybe now you walk 32 minutes a day. Maybe you walk up some hills for 35 minutes and things like that. So you slowly find ways to increase the intensity so your body is constantly trying to readjust and do better for itself.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
All right. So you have a philosophy, speaking of biblical terms, called the fitness Trinity. So, kind of explain what that means and how you actually came up with that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Not to get too much into the detail of it, but it's really just like the mind, body, and the soul. That's your fitness Trinity, realistically. And like I said, that's why I tried to really break that down in the book. That it attacks these 13 principles so that people understand, like, hey, listen, if you take your mind and you separate that from your body, you really have two people living in communion with one another. My mind knows that, hey, I want to sit on the couch and eat apple pie and ice cream all day. That's what my mind wants to do. The problem is once I do it so much, my body starts to crave that too, But your body is this beautiful, amazing machine that is God built that is made to at all times be in a state of homeostasis, which means like if you set your AC to 67 degrees, your AC will always try to keep you at 67 degrees. Your body also gets to a level where it's like, what's the most comfortable and optimal way to be? So if you're a person who works out 5 days a week and you go back to being sedentary, your body's going to fight you on that because you're going to start aching. You're going to start feeling something. There's going to be something that's not fulfilled. Same goes for the person who doesn't do anything. And then you start to go exercise. Your body's like, hey, what's going on? I've only prepared for us to be the person who's just at home, doing what we do and not incorporating a lot of exercise. So that's where you're going to get that pain. You're going to get that delayed onset muscle soreness, and your body's going to start to reject that. And what you have to do is slowly bring your body along the journey with you and try to kind of whip it into shape and be more apt to try to make the changes that are better for you. And of course, incorporating God into that trinity of being motivated, understanding that, you have this amazing vessel that God has given you where the Spirit of God dwells, and it wants to be in a beautiful temple. So what can you do to make that thing be as beautiful as possible? And not just talking about aesthetics, but where it has blood pressure that's good, blood sugar that's good, cholesterol that's good. I tell people, I always had this thing, show me the numbers, because I don't care if you're 400 pounds. What do the numbers say? What's your blood pressure like? What's your blood sugar like? If those things are normal and you're happy being at whatever weight you are, I don't care if you 100 pounds or 400 pounds, but if those numbers are dictating that you are a healthy person, then you are a healthy person as long as you feel good about it, So I think we have to constantly remember that the things that my mind wants, it may not be good for my body, and the thing that my body wants may not be good for my mind. My mind is the central processing unit that runs the entire computer, which is my body. And as I continue to train that CPU and fill it up with all the facts and the information that makes me a better person overall, health-wise, fitness-wise, then my body is going to be reprogrammed to follow suit. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in that sweet spot where like I know when I don't work out, I know what my body feels like, and I know what it feels like when I do. I feel fantastic. I love to sweat, get all that energy out, and then just reset for the next day. And when I don't, I start to feel a lot of extra muscle pain that I know my body's like, hey, we need to move, So I get those cues and I embrace it.
So as a physical therapist, what's your specialty? What do you specialize in?
The degree that I got from University of Miami, they give us what they call we don't have any specialist degrees. We're more of a generalist. So they give us all the tools to use in the toolkit. So what we ended up doing as a generalist is you can go and work anywhere. Where I ended up finding my love, which was odd, I went out, like most therapists would love to just get paid a lot of money to work in a outpatient clinic. You have a lot of people, they come in, you don't have to deal with wounds or anything like that. And they're usually not very elderly. So they move fast. You can challenge them. You can give them all these great things. And, they're easier to work with. Where you really get into the more difficult settings of like ICU, neuro, cardiac rehab, these things you really have, you have patients who are very sick and you really have to kind of move at a slower speed and be a little more strategic with, constantly monitoring their vitals and all that stuff. So, ironically enough, when I first came out, I wanted to do outpatient only, and I ended up kind of segueing into geriatrics, which is what I was doing in nursing homes and long-term rehab. And I ended up loving it. Working with the elderly patients was fantastic. And then I actually went a step further and went to the opposite end of the spectrum and started working in pediatrics with kids with disabilities and things. So I feel like that ended up being more of my niche, both of those guys working with pediatrics and geriatrics. But I did have a fantastic time in ICU and neuro in the hospital because it was always so challenging to really have these complicated patients and figure out how, even though they've got like 10 tubes hanging out of them, how do you get them to have exercise at a low enough level where It stresses their body, cardiac wise, but it keeps them safe. And yet it has tremendous upside and benefits in the long run when you see that patient come out of the ICU up to the medical floor and then eventually leaving the hospital, going back home. So yeah, the rewards were fantastic, but I kind of have taken that generalist mentality and just, use it in any setting I work in. So as long as people are getting better, I really don't mind where I work.
Well, tell us about any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I've written over 20 books. I feel like my heart and my passion is really in um fiction. So with my company, I'm the CEO of Cosby Media Productions. We're a small press company, small press publishing company out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we've published over 30 authors with 60 titles in ebook, paperback, and audiobooks over the years. We also have our own comic imprint called Star Child Comics, which I'm also the CEO of. And that became like a real passion project of mine. We've published over 12 first issues. We have a second issue of some of the comics that I've written, working with artists who are so talented and writing scripts for them that basically expand on the stories that we're already telling. So like my project, The Broken Project, which is the novel, is book 1, book 2, and 3 are comics and graphic novels that were illustrated by the fabulous Ram Silva. And so I wrote the scripts on those. I wrote Still Rain, which is a bounty hunter series. The novel was a finalist in the American Legacy Book Awards, and the comic book is the prequel to that. Daniel Max did the art in that one. And I also have my own superhero series that we ended up creating our own superhero world, me and 5 other authors in Cosby Media Productions. Daniel Payton with the Bark series, Keyshawn Dodds with Menzuo series, Kyle Champion did The Majesties of Canaan, and Lawrence St. John did Metatron, and I bought my series, The Cape, and we kind of just created our own superhero universe. And so far, the books that I've contributed to that universe are 2 issues of The Cape, also Infinity 7, which is kind of our Avengers team. We have books 1 and 2 of that, and my 2 comic books. So my projects that I'm pushing this year, newly released, is the second issue of The Cape, which is the Fabulous 5, and the graphic novel from the Broken series. So I'll be going to conventions and things like that this entire year of 25 and pushing those out and meeting new readers and things like that. They can also look for the second edition of Fat Free for Life. This year actually makes year 8 for the original release, and the second edition is going to be filled with even more statistical proofs and things and research that people can look forward to and more ideas. So that's going to be coming out next year that we'll be publishing, and just continuing to write more. I've got some fantastic stories that are still in my head that I can't really talk about yet, but I'll be working on those towards the end of this year as well. And for all those fans who've been waiting on it, we will have the next issue of Still Rain that I'll be working on this year with Daniel Max again. So just fantastic stuff out there. We have amazing artists that we work with, and I'm always excited to work with them. And my colorist, Julio Rojas Caballero, is so talented, and he's done the inks on a couple of the projects that I've written too. So yeah, so we're just very blessed to be in a place where we can tell fantastic stories that I think are unique, and the authors are just so fantastic and dynamic, and we just created worlds that we feel like people can read and they can feel safe about having their children read as well. And it's all our mantra is entertain the mind and inspire the soul, and I think we do that with the stuff that we put out.
Sounds like you got a lot going on, and so people
Yeah.
can keep up with all that you got going on. Throw out your contact info, like your website, stuff like that.
Absolutely. They want to check up on Cosby Media Productions. That's www.cosbymediaproductions with an S.com. The website is very easy to navigate. You can go just by genre straight down the page if you want young adult, new adult, fiction, fantasy, whatever you like. You'll also see our links to our social media. We're on Instagram. It's Cosby Media Productions, and also Starchild_Comics. You can also check me out on Instagram as well with Braxton A. Cosby, and just follow a little bit of everything that we're doing. You can subscribe to our newsletter and just be informed on all the great projects that we continue to push out this year.
All right. So close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Yeah, I think just for me, you only have one life to live. Make it the best that you can. Set your goals, make them realistic, and just slowly start to just accomplish them over time. I think the main thing is that people don't have an outline for their life. I tell people all the time, if you're going to write a story, whether it's a comic script, a novel, or even a screenplay, you have to have an outline. You have to have a beginning and an end, and you fill up the middle with all the great details that just are going to keep that story moving. And that's how we need to orchestrate our lives as well. What's my beginning? What's my end? I know I'm in the middle right now, but I want to project myself to have the best ending of this story possible. And I think you need to kind of have an outline for your life, 1 year plan, 5 year, 10, 20, whatever it is, but just kind of know the end game and then enjoy the time and the journey along the way. Don't rush things, but just take it one day at a time, one moment at a time, and just continue to sow something special into the special people around you. And you'd be surprised how the world and the universe just gives back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, CosbyMediaProductions.com. Please be sure to check out everything that Dr. Cosby's up to. Check out his writings, check out that show, Ask the Fat Doctor, check out the books, and he's really doing some great things and making the world a better place. Share this episode to as many people as possible. Jump on your favorite podcast app, leave us a review, follow us, check out the show. If you have any guest or suggestion topics, Curtis Jackson 1978 at att.net is the place to send them. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Dr. Cosby, thank you for all that you do to make the world a better place, and thank you for joining us.
And once again, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Jackson. Really appreciate it.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.